Howdy, hello everyone. My name is Sajay Preferred and welcome to my official YouTube channel at The Only Preferred. For my first video, I was going to do a pretty simple get ready with me, get to know me. So I'm going to go prep, prime, we're going to slap the on, we're going to get into it. So I went ahead and did my eyebrows before priming just because I do get really greasy, and with the extra priming oil on top of it, it does kind of slip around. But speaking of greasy, hi, hello, my name is Sajay Preferred. I'm 22 years old and I'm a drag queen from Birmingham, Alabama. And yes, you did hear that correct, Alabama. Yes, it is rough. I was born and raised in Alabama ever since I was born. Crazy how that works. In a small town called Ozark, Alabama, which is literally in the middle of nowhere. If anyone has ever been, I don't know if you're from the South, my Southern people, hey yo. If you're from the South and if you ever go to Panama City Beach, you've probably traveled through Little Ozark. It's literally one street and then you're done. But it was a very conservative town. I luckily had a family who were black sheeps of the town, and did not fit in very well. So therefore, we all just kind of took care of each other. And we all died. So I'm just cutting out my eyebrow really quick with the LA Girl Pro Concealer. Listen, I am a cheap girl. Disclaimer, I am not a makeup artist. I am a drag queen. And as drag queens, sometimes you do not get paid that much. So therefore, when you find a cheap product and it works, you go with it. So a lot of the stuff you will see me use is going to be extremely cheap. And get into it. You should honestly thrive with cheaper makeup. Half the time it's the same stuff, like literally the same stuff. I'm just gonna go in really quick and blend all of that out. And so I started doing makeup actually at a very young age. In high school, I was pretty openly queer. There were not very many of us, two to be exact, not including myself. And it was very interesting because none of them were as open about themselves as I was, I guess you would say. I got very heavily into drag and theater as a whole, really, when I was a kid. My grandmother was always very into the arts, and she kind of just led my way. And not to mention my older brother was also a drag queen when I was very, very young. And I remember being in elementary school and literally sitting there as my brother and his ex-husband would just sit and style a wig on me. And from that moment, I really knew this is what I want to do. I want to ruin my skin with thousands of pounds of makeup every single day. So much fun. So I'm just going to take that now and go on top of the brow. But when I first started doing makeup, I wanted to do it in the sense of like mixing a boy wearing makeup from seeing, you know, my brother do drag, and the little touch of, hey, I do theater. Did you know that I do theater? Well, if not, guess what? I'm going to tell you. I do theater. And it was very much so that kid in high school. I kind of just ran to whoever had open arms and whoever was loving and accepting. And therefore, it kind of made me involved with everyone in the school. And I kind of became known as someone who, like, was always themselves, always being who they wanted to be, no matter who said anything. I even actually got my drag name from high school. I remember I was in 10th grade and I had a math teacher. Of course it was math. And we're not going to mention the name because they don't deserve that platform. But he was very openly homophobic, I would say at least. And one day he thought it would be cute to do roll call, and instead of saying Sage, he was like, oh, I'm gonna call you Sajay. That sounds more fitting. Is that okay with you? And everyone, of course, laughed because they were like, oh my god, it's so girly. And I was like, no, I actually prefer it. So Sajay preferred, and it has stuck ever since then. And it's really a story of like going to show if you're confident in who you are, you can really make anything work, even if it's people harassing you. And that's shouldn't be a true statement, but unfortunately it is. So I'm just going on and smearing my foundation all over. I start with a brush just to make it a little bit more thick, because we do like it thick. And we're going in with the Smashbox Studio Skin 24-Hour Hydro Foundation. This is probably the most expensive thing I have in my makeup, just because I tried it one time and I was hooked. And ever since then, hasn't stopped for me. But I'm also one of those people where, like, when something works for me, it's almost like a ritual. Like, I can't change the times. I can't make something different. It has to be the same from now on out. So therefore, I spend $30-something on this foundation every single time I need foundation, instead of spending like $8. But it's okay. It is a-okay. So now that I have that on, I'm just gonna really quickly spray my face with some setting spray, some NYX Plump Finish setting spray. It's lovely. I'm just gonna go in with a beauty blender and just blend all of that out. I actually started doing drag towards the end of my high school years. I started with doing the makeup and, you know, figuring out that, hey, I'm gonna take hate and make it into something famous. And then once I got from there, went to my brother and I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna finish your legacy and start doing drag. Because by this time he was no longer doing it. He had fallen out of it and I was getting into it, and he definitely helped me and supported me. And I started, and I remember my senior year, I started performing, and I was very into the camp. I loved comedy drag and campy drag, and that's just immediately what I leaned towards. And I remember just always going for the huge makeup and the huge hair, and I was always obsessed with old school pageant drag, because that's what was mainly the form of drag in Lower Alabama, LA, as my mom would say. And I loved the huge hair and the stones and the big feathers, but I didn't like the persona that they put on. So I was like, well, let's be funny. Let's do that. So I'm going in with the Juvia's Place concealer. Amazing concealer. One of those things where I got hooked on it. Haven't stopped using it since. We're just blending all that out real quick. So I started in Dothan, Alabama, which was 30 minutes away from my hometown of Ozark, Alabama. And I started at a club called DDC. Shout out to DDC, which, crazy enough, was actually a club that my brother performed at whenever he did drag, which is just absolutely insane to me. Small world. Such a small world. But I eventually became known as like a quirky queen. And I immediately kind of, not to toot my own horn, but flourished because I was doing my own thing. I didn't let people tell me what to do. I didn't let people try to take control over me, and I just did whatever I wanted to, and it really, really paid off. Did it look great? No, not at all. But she was serving something. I'm gonna go in really quick and just add a teeny tiny bit more, just to kind of oomph it up a little bit. So I remember I eventually started to outbrand myself from doing less comedical things and trying to be more of that oomph and the drag that I wanted, that huge hair and that big stoned outfit. And I eventually landed in the middle of like doing comedy and having those things. And it really just initially was just me still doing me. But of course, you know, you get inspirations and you get people whispering in your ear telling you to do these things, and you lean towards one way and then you swerve towards the right, and then you go back and forth, and it gets annoying. But sometimes you got to look in the mirror and you got to say, honey,
you've got a big storm coming.
I'm gonna go in now with my contour. I like to put powder over my wet foundation just because I feel like it sticks and blends a little bit easier. Also, I'm a busy girl, and a lot of times when I'm getting ready, I'm doing it in under an hour, I would say, and it just really helps fasten the process, speed up the process, make the process go by faster. We'll go with that. So I'm just gonna take it and start in the outer corner, and I usually start where my horrible, disgusting sideburns are. I'm just gonna add that in and make it pop a little bit more. So I was actually working at DDC for most of the last years of my high school times, and I remember it was so crazy because I was doing drag on the weekends and going to AP forums and waking up and doing it all over again. But it was so much fun, and it honestly taught me so much. It taught me how to really like do everything by myself, not only drag related but also life related. I had that family that like kind of you learn and you figure it out and you went from there, and that's kind of how it always has been with me. So when it came to drag, it was pretty easy to just pick up and go. But performing with such like established people in the area, such as someone who actually became my drag mom, but she actually taught me the routes of knowing your persona and knowing how to close a sale, if you know what I mean, or start a sale to close that sale. But she really taught me ultimately how to be a bad bitch. And with that kind of really just grew into that wanting to do the more like oomphy drag. And then later towards the end of my high school year, I actually started going through a little bit of a gender crisis, and really being confused of not only gender but sexuality, and not really understanding why I didn't fit in with anything. And as I started college, it kind of dawned on me, I don't have to be a gay male. I don't have to be a cis male. I can really just be whatever I want. And so I did. And my freshman year of college, I discovered that I identified as gender fluid and pansexual, and then I started playing more with my drag. And so that's when I started to dabble in the more feminine makeup and the more softer makeup, and ever since then it's honestly really stuck. Now that I've went in and softened all of that contour, and I use the Cara Beauty contour palette. It's called the Perfectly Defined, excuse me. Cara Beauty is incredible. They have extremely cheap makeup, but that is also just genuinely incredible products. So I definitely recommend them. But now that I have that done, I'm just going to go back in really quick and add some more of that white concealer to my lid. And then we're gonna go in and kind of blend that back into the concealer. And this is probably like the wackest part of my makeup, to be honest. I'm one of those people, I'm gonna tell you right now, makeup, to take it so seriously, for drag specifically, it's not worth it. Girly, put down the brush. Trust me, I am a perfectionist. I do things to a T. It bothers me when things are not done the exact way I want them to be. But the T is, with the lashes, with the lights, with the 2 seconds of you being on that screen or on that stage, they're not gonna see it, girly. They're really not. It's gonna be fine. So now that I have that blended all the way down, really quick, I'm just gonna go over my eyelid lightly. And then I'm gonna immediately take some pressed powder, or not some pressed powder, some loose powder, and put it over my eyelid. And I'm telling you right now, this is going to save you so much time. And the reason I say this is because a lot of the times you will sit there and spend minutes, hours carving a crease, and it's just gonna peel. It's just gonna pop, especially if you have really bad skin like me. Love that for me. Send prayers, y'all. It's just gonna pop, and it's gonna ultimately be very, very pointless to sit there. Not pointless, I shouldn't say pointless, a waste of time to sit there and carve out this huge crease that's gonna last like 20 seconds. You know what I mean? So really, really quick, I'm just gonna go in and blend my forehead before I set it. I have a horrible age line, I guess you would say. Stress line, needs Botox line, and she's always popping through. Literally go to any of my unedited photos on Instagram and you will see that little line just popping. Just because no matter how much I conceal it, I literally put a bunch of primer, no grip primer, to seal it. Nothing, not a single thing. It just does not like me. So now that we have that baking underneath, we're going to go ahead and start on our nose contour. I'm just going to go back into that same palette. And I'm just going to start going right down my wet nose. And another part of the nose contour, or a big thing about the nose contour, is I specifically love to do my nose contour on wet foundation just because I have a very porous nose. She's always popping through and saying, hi, hello to the children. And makeup does not like it. So I find when I do it on the wet, it just really slides perfectly and blends incredibly to a T. So I highly recommend it if you have horrible nose pores like me. And then I'm just going to take that up into my eyebrow. And it's going to kind of help make my eyebrows a little bit more symmetrical. Because, spoiler alert, I am not a queen of symmetry. I already told you all about that story of high school and me getting my drag name. Yeah, that was in a geometry class. So, I'm convinced math is homophobic, queerphobic, transphobic, everything. And it's not meant for humans. Now that we have that nose contour on, we're going to go in with this light powder in the contour palette, and we're just going to lightly set it down the middle. And it doesn't have to be perfect, one, because we've already discussed symmetry is homophobic. The thing I always try to tell people is don't stress. We already went over it. We already understood. We should have understood the assignment. You can fix everything. You can fix everything. Well, maybe not everything, but most things you can in fact fix. Now we're going to go in with our powder. And by the way, the powder I use is the Maybelline Fit Me Poreless whatever powder. It is so good. I have, like I said, very porous skin, so it really helps set everything in and make it not look so horrid. Now that we have those sides set, we're just going to let that bake. Just going to take a little bit of that powder and we're going to set it on the rest of our face with a big fluffy brush.
People say that time heals all wounds.
Okay, so now that we have all of that laid out, we're going to start to go in with our eyeshadow. Make sure to please put powder underneath that or else it will get messy. And I'm going to be showing you my pretty go-to eyeshadow, which is a gray half cut crease. I do this because gray goes with a lot of the outfits I wear. I don't wear a lot of colorful outfits, but even if I do, it still kind of blends in with it. And it is also extremely easy to do on the go. Literally, I can pop this gray eye on in like 0.2 seconds and call it a day. We're going to start by going in with a Cara Beauty palette called Goddess Nim. It is this amazing gray tone palette, really, really incredible. we're gonna go in and just start packing in the shade on the inner corner. And we're actually allowing it to stick to that white concealer that we still have there. And it's gonna help us blend it out a whole lot easier and quicker. So like, see, bam, that's like almost one eye completely done. And I don't do, specifically for this eye, I don't really do the outer corners because my eyes are so uneven. So every time I do like this huge graphic liner, it never really works out for me just because of my lines or my eyes being so uneven. So when I'm on a go specifically, I will do this cut crease and it's still there because the lashes cover up the end and you're still getting that pop of color. And a lot of the times I'll just literally take this shape and constantly reuse it. So blue, pink is probably my favorite to do because I will often blend it into the blush, but it's a super easy eye. So I'm just gonna do the other one off camera real quick. So now that I have all of that laid out, I'm just gonna go in and start setting underneath my eyebrow the rest of the white with this Ulta Beauty single eyeshadow in the color Pure as Snow. A lot of people hate on this. I genuinely love this. It is super like creamy and buttery to me. And a lot of people say it's not pigmented, but I guess it works for me. So we're gonna take that and we're gonna start with setting it underneath the eyebrow. And you're gonna slowly blend it into that gray just to kind of soften it. We're gonna go in the inner corner and just lightly tap it. It's okay if you kind of like blend everything out because once again, we'll go back in and blend more of that gray. And the last thing we're gonna do is take that white and set it on top of that lid. So when you press the white powder into the loose powder, it's just gonna make it brighter and set more. So it literally does the whole thing you need a cut crease to in like half the time. And as we do this, we're just gonna slowly blend it into that underline just to make that underline of that gray a little bit more crispy. Now that we have all of that set, we're just gonna go in and start putting down our liner. Liner and eyes in general are like the biggest change for me in drag, besides my contour. Just because I used to do these huge like Trixie Mattel, kimchi-esque eye shapes, and as I started getting into the softer makeup, I really realized it doesn't work for you, girl. It really doesn't. So now I do a lot less liner for sure. And once again, the huge liner, it's really not worth it because the lashes are going to cover up it all, and it's a lot of stress for nothing, honestly. So we're just going to go in and we're going to make a small little line, just enough to cover our lashes, and they're definitely not going to be even, but it's okay. We're going to make it work.
I feel like a deer in the headlights of love.
Now that that is somewhat dry, hopefully, we're going to go in, we're going to put some powder underneath just to kind of catch any of the black that we set it with. And then we're gonna go in with a tiny, eensy beensy little angled brush. And we're just gonna go in and really pat it down. You always wanna pat and not swipe, because swipe can take away the makeup. And we don't want that.
You could stop at 5 or 6 stores, or just one. Can I ask you kind of a weird question?
Okay, so now that we have that, we're gonna go back in with the white eyeshadow and pack it on top just to kind of catch anything that might have accidentally gotten up there where it's not supposed to be. So now that we have that back on, we're gonna go in with that brush again. And we're gonna take just a little bit of black and we're gonna go in and really define that crease.
You could stop at 5 or 6 stores, or just one.
And now that we have that on there, we're gonna take our gray brush from earlier. We're just gonna slowly pack that out. Then for the last time, we're gonna go in, put a little, just a tiny bit more of that white, just to kind of catch any of that from the cutting that we did earlier. And then we're also going to take that white and just blend it back at the top as well. Okay, so now that we have that on, we're just going to take this really cheap and amazing white liner that I found by a brand called Profusion. Extremely cheap and extremely good. And we're going to take that and we're just going to cut underneath that black line just to make it a little bit more sharp. And once again, symmetry is not my best friend, so please don't judge. So now we're just going to sit and dry that really quick. So now that's pretty dry, we're going to just do everything that we just did just on the other side really quick, and we're going to get it done. So now that that's done, they're definitely not sisters. I'm very convinced they don't even know each other, but it is completely okay. We're going to go in and set the top of our brow really quick with that same white shadow. And then we're going to go in and darken our eyebrows really quick with some eyeshadow. I tend to wear a lot of darker hair, so genuinely I use a darker eyeshadow to do this. I've always worn darker hair in drag. I actually genuinely hate myself in blonde. It is horrible, which is such a shock to me because I love the aesthetic of blondes. Like, Dolly Parton is probably one of my biggest idols, and she is known for the blonde. Okay, so now that they're somewhat even, I'm just going to take the remainder of that white eyeshadow and pat it underneath just to kind of redefine the bottom line. I've always been obsessed with the white underneath my brows, even when I did like the big exaggerated makeup. Obsessed with clown white underneath my brows. It's always stuck ever since. So now I'm just going to take a lighter gray and start blending it underneath my bottom liner. So now that I have that blended out on the bottom, I love the like very droopy bottom eye. There's just something about it. It screams very crying / stoned, and I love it. I'm going to take some black and just lightly tap it in the corner just to blend it into the bottom of that lash, that liner. I'm going to quickly go in and lightly swipe / tap all of that excess powder away and into my skin. And then I'm going to take a bigger brush and go in with a darker color bronzer just to kind of redefine all of that contour from earlier. And we're going to take it in and just literally scrape it on the forehead. So I'm going to go in with this pressed foundation. It's the Maybelline Superstay 24-hour pressed foundation, powder foundation, and it is honestly incredible. And I'm just going to go in with this, like, no hard feelings, just press it into where you put all your highlight. So now we're going to go in with my literal favorite part ever, which is hands down blush. I am incredibly in love with blush. And I take that and I blend it all the way up into my forehead. Now, sometimes I really question why I do this. I know why I do it, because it makes me look incredible. So now that we have that blended into the cheeks, we're going to take it on the nose. And we're going to put it on the nose and then on the chin. And then I'm going to take a bigger blush brush and take a darker blush to kind of deepen those pockets, just to give it a little bit more oomph and really blend it in with that contour. Okay, so now that that is set, I'm just going to really quickly go into the nose with that, you guessed it, white eyeshadow. It's almost like it's handy dandy. And I'm just going to set the middle part down the bridge, and this is going to really brighten it, because that other powder is not as bright. It would just kind of bake it to make it a little worm in a little tequila bottle. I'm gonna go back in with the contour color and lightly redefine it. I really hate glitter. It's too messy, it's too chaotic, and I'm an Aries. I love chaos. It's too much. But what I found really works are these little elf. Juvia's Place has ones that are amazing too. Elf is a little bit cheaper, so that's why we go with her. But you literally just glide them on. So we're just gonna take that and we're gonna put it right at the end of that white liner just to kind of diffuse it and make it not as harsh. We're also gonna put it in the inner corner just to give it a little bit of pop. I'm just gonna go in and add it to my chin. And then my signature thing is to do it right above my Cupid's bow. I'll do a tip on my nose and then just a wee bit in between my brow. All right, so we're getting into the finishing touches of everything. We're gonna go in with highlighter. And highlighter is one of those things that I also, when I first started doing drag, I did not really care for because I was overly oily out of drag and I feel like it really just added to it. But now I just don't care. I'm just going with the flow. Whatever I like, and I do like to be shiny. And we're just gonna lightly go back in and blend that into the blush. Add more blush. So now that we have just about everything on, we're gonna go ahead and set everything. Make sure it's nice and melted together. That's really gonna help with that texturizing underneath the eye that I have going on. I have very sensitive skins, even more sensitive eyes, to be honest. So by setting my face before I put on the lashes, it really helps melt everything so that when I set it again and again and again, it's usually used to it by then. So we're just gonna go in with this NYX Plump Finish. It is an incredible setting spray. Really does the job. Really makes me feel like plastic, to be honest, which I absolutely love. So we're just gonna go in, drown ourselves in it, and then dry it off. This is when you usually sit and you think to yourself,
I am the queen of the universe. The waves part, and they engulf me, and the water is warm.
and sometimes you never figure out, and it's okay. So now that we have all that sprayed, we're gonna go in with our lipstick. I used to line my lips with lip liner. Honestly, it's way too much work, and it, for the most part, will just take off your foundation. So now I just risk it for the biscuit. So we're just gonna go in, line, draw, and wish that we had an upper lip.
Do you kiss your mother with that mouth?
So now we have huge clown lips, which they're normally not that big, but it is okay. We're gonna start putting on our lashes. These are 3 pairs of lashes stacked together. I'm just gonna start by taking lash glue and putting it on the lash. And then we're gonna take it and put it on the liner just to kind of really get them to grip into place. Then I'm gonna let them both dry really quick. And then we're gonna plop and pray. So usually I'll like sit it on there and then I'll take my fan and dry it. Because of my sensitive eyes, it really just helps it become like super tacky and I'm not moving around a bunch of like wet liner onto my eye. So that's one of them done. I'm gonna do the other one really quick and then I'm gonna blend them together with mascara. So now that I have the mascara on, I'll just take my fingers and swipe them through my lashes just to get all the excess gunk off. Like that is a whole bunch of stuff that could have just smeared all over my eye. So now that those are on, we're gonna go in with a black liner for our under eye and just smear that on. And we're really gonna hyper focus that in the outer corner. And then we're just gonna set our face really quick, make sure it's nice and dry, and then that is it. So now that I have the makeup done, I'm gonna go put on hair and an outfit real quick, and I will be right back. And with a little lip and a little latch, you become a preferred. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am so excited to finally have this channel to share all of the queer art, specifically queer local Alabama art. We have so many amazing entertainers and we're here to show that we are here. I cannot wait for our next special guest that I have lined up. She is an icon from Alabama and I'm so excited for y'all to meet her. Until next time, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on all of my socials at The Only Preferred. That is at The Only Preferred. Ding!